Well, I'm so glad that you were able to take some time today to talk with me for my little show, Let's Exchange. Because I know you're busy, you've got a whole conference going on. You're just telling me a little bit about it. This is an academic conference that you're at, that you're a featured author.
Yeah, it's kind of academics and writers colliding in their work. It's a lot of fun, and in real space, it's a lot of fun because it's in Florida right at that moment when you really are done with winter here.
Hmm.
Um, but but the virtual version is still pretty okay.
Yeah. Academics and writers colliding seems a lot like my grad program for me right now. So I feel like there's some like common ground there. Um, well, I was just looking over your bio again, and I'm just like, how is it? How do you do it? Like, you're so prolific as an author. You really one of, I mean, we've known each other a long time, and you've always been one of my favorite artists in Baltimore. Um, how do you do it? What's your secret?
Well, first of all, right back at you. But I I think it's all like smoke and mirrors. I don't think I'm as prolific as it looks like. I mean, I guess we're all our own worst critic, but I feel like I never get anything done. Um, when I have deadlines, I meet them. My music fell horribly by the wayside when I started writing fiction, and it's still sitting there begging to be picked up out of the ditch. And I like when the two collide. Those are some of my happiest moments when I can find ways to bring the two together. But I think there's a moment when you're writing, like you're writing and writing and writing, and nothing is selling at the beginning,
Mhm.
and then stuff starts to sell, and there's a moment where you can look back and say, "Oh, I think I know what I did wrong with that other stuff," and so you have this big backlog of stuff that didn't sell, but suddenly you know what to do with it. And so, or at least this is what happened with me. And so I had a few years that looked very prolific because I was able to pull this stuff I'd already written and say, this is what it needed, this is what it needed, and send those out too.
Mhm.
Um, so since that backlog disappeared, I feel like I'm constantly scrambling to keep up. Um, but I'm also very bad at sitting still, so I guess there's some combination results in me actually being able to get something done at some point.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean that kind of tracks. I feel like there's like similar ground between that kind of like mining the backlog in for me in my songwriting, you know, where I'm like, here's a thing that's just been sitting around and I love it, but like it's never worked for whatever reason.
Right.
And then, whatever, 5, 10, 20 years later, like I find the home for it and I'm like, ah, this really works.
Yeah. It's sort of like the sophomore album thing too, where you know, like you put years into the first one. The same with a novel, you might put years into the first one, and then the contract says you have to turn around a second one within a year, and you have to sort of scramble and resurrect stuff and rearrange and that sort of thing. Um, I was what was the other thing I was thinking? Oh, with I was gonna say I had a story that came out this past year that is sort of a collaboration with myself from 20 years ago because I started it in college in an independent study, and I had nothing. Like I had this at the time I had ideas and I never finished anything, and I'm surprised like I passed those classes because I would do fragments that had promise, and then I guess, but I would put them away, and I had this memory of this fragment from college was what it actually was, of this character that I had started writing about, and it was pulling out this memory and saying, "Wait, was that a real thing or was that something I had written?" It was actually the act of remembering it that told me what the actual story was, and the story had to do with the remembering rather than the thing as a thing.
Hmm.
So you had it needed 20 years of space in order to actually write it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I really like that it becomes part of the process. Had you have you always worked in science fiction?
No, well, certainly in college, I thought you weren't supposed to do that, so I sort of turned literary way. And to me, they're both genres in any case, like with their own trappings. And so I think I write sort of literary fiction with science fiction trappings, and I write science fiction with literary trappings, and sometimes there are fewer trappings than other, um, in one direction or another.
I want to see that on a blurb. Minimal trappings.
Yeah, the naked stuff.
But yeah, I mean, I get that. Like I carried a pretty heavy bias against science fiction for a long time because I was just like, I don't get this. Like your name might be Gleep Glorp, but like you're still dealing with a lot of the same boring problems. And I was like, as a trans kid with no like outlet, I was like, I think my life is like science fiction and I don't, I'm just not finding it there. And it took like so many years till I found authors that were like, oh, I get it, this is what the power of this, it feels glib to call it a genre really because it's so too big to be a genre. It's so many
Right, right, right. It's a lot of related subgenres, and I think the sort of the big thing of it is the what if. And I think at this point, at least in the areas that I hang out, the humanists are winning. So a lot of it is about looking at our lives, um, through a different prism. Like, and that's what the beauty of science fiction has always been to me, is this opportunity to step outside of the thing we're living, and in doing that, see it differently. And the risk there, of course, is in othering. You don't want to. I think the people who have done it badly and awkwardly have often, said, "Well, I'm going to substitute this for this, and then we'll talk," and it'll be fine. And it ends up being a very othering experience. And but I think there's a lot more own voice in science fiction, and a lot more, people approaching things with a different mindset now, that means that you don't have to just say, oh, aliens are green, and thus we can talk about race by talking about aliens, because I think there's some reductive stuff that's happened in the past of the genre that needs to be put away.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, just because something was like actually pretty groundbreaking and progressive in 1940, 1950, 1960 doesn't mean it's going to have, you can't do the same sorts of things now. That's what progress, I think, is about. I mean, call me crazy. I don't know. Um, I feel like, I mean, pandemic time has made things very weird. I feel like Song for a New Day like just came out, even though it's been like what, year and a half at this point, I guess, something
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. And I feel like, I definitely want to talk about that a little bit now, even though it's what, ancient history a little bit, because it was uh it's so much about what happened during the pandemic in so many ways, right? Especially I mean, as a performer, as a musician, to be like, oh, we can't go to shows. We can't have shows. We can't do shows. And yeah, like this book, like, which is one of the last books of fiction I actually got to read because I'm in grad school. I'm not reading fiction right now. So I'm just like, it's been on my mind a lot. I'm sure other people have brought that to you.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Accidentally writing the future was a weird side effect of that book. And the present that we're living in. And it wasn't like our it's the danger of writing something that's near future, is if you do it well, you think everything out, and you keep saying this, well, what if, and what then, and what then, and what then, and so you map everything out, and uh if you do it well, it's still not necessarily something you want to come true. It's just this, sort of puzzle that you've worked out, one possibility, and then, I guess I worked out the puzzle of what would happen if, if people were not able to have shows. That the fact that that was the puzzle that I worked on, just
yeah.
was a horrible coincidence. Um,
I mean, you had to have had moments where you're just like going through this last year and being like, I can't believe that I predicted this.
yeah, yeah, there've been a lot of like the flaming lips and the bubbles and the restaurants that have come up with like self-contained booths. Like there are all these little things that just come out of the, well, what would you do? And it's the stuff that made sense. But then some of the music related stuff has been interesting too.
Yeah,
um Everyone trying to find ways to perform, and some of the shows in a can that people do, you know, and ways to recreate the live experience. Like we don't have any technology like the one that I came up with,
sure.
fortunately and unfortunately, probably. Um, and I still have the same fears that like all of these things, work better for the people who can afford the better technologies. Like if you can afford the VR rig, you can do a VR show, and if most of my friends can't, and
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I remember, I don't know if you've done any live stream performances in this year, but I remember very early on, after the shutdown, I was asked like, let's do a gig, let's do a streaming gig. And I found a Facebook Live video that somebody had made, and the tagline was like, "Go, like, start streaming for just $15. Like, I'm going to show you how to do it or whatever." And basically, he was shilling for this app you can get for your phone, which is going to help like make it easy. But then he like showed his like basement lair that was like easily like $30,000 worth of equipment. He had like drum riser a permanent drum riser built in his basement. And I'm just like, oh, come on. This is not a $15. This isn't $15. This is you with like a lifetime of like building out this whole thing. Like this is different.
Right, you were waiting for your moment is what it is. Like he was there building it, hoping it would come. But
Yeah.
yeah, I've seen your band during this year. I've seen a whole bunch of well, it wasn't your band, it was you. I mean, it was one of your solo iterations, not your whole band. Um I guess I've seen a couple of bands do things, some of which were the fancier. Like the Jayhawks did a show in the round. They did a
Oh, cool.
covers show in the round, which I actually loved because they didn't know the songs they were playing. Like I think the beauty for me, a lot of the beauty of a live show is the mistakes
Hmm.
and the moments that feel real. And if it feels too much like a music video, I'm like, I could watch this anytime it's a music video. I could just press play on this. And what they did was they stood in the round and they played songs that they didn't know so well. And like one of them, like they forgot the bridge, and one of them forgot an E chord in the middle and sort of like ground a song to a halt. And then they had to discuss whether they were going to do it again or not. And those moments made it feel like it was worth paying $20 for, because it was something real and unscripted and not recorded. It was, they said they weren't airing it again, and it was so much better than some of the perfect looking stuff that just feels like you could do
Yeah, yeah. I'm
anytime.
I'm definitely with you on that. Definitely there have been some live streaming things that have been just made more real by the warts and
Yeah.
the mistakes. And I saw one show by Mark Allman from Soft Cell,
Mhm.
and he had his band, and he was just doing this like very broad sort of thing, but clearly in like a basement studio. And I forget, like, it was one song that he did, Something's Got a Hold of My Heart, one of the other ones. And then it was done. He was just like, oh, that was like, he just like, was like, that's the worst thing. That was the worst performance. I'm sorry. Like, he apologized. And I'm like, I didn't really like hear anything that was like tragic about it, but like, I loved his just like complete dismissal. I'm like, I'm
Right.
sorry that you had to see that.
Right. And my friend Elliot Bronson, who's from Baltimore, he does a show on Facebook every Wednesday night, and he's done it all year. And he'll do, like, he usually has a theme, um, and he announces the theme ahead of time, and he asks people like what they want to hear on that theme, and he spends the whole week learning like stuff for that theme that he hasn't played before, and he'll play those interspersed with his songs, and then he has little like features that he does every time, like he does art to go along with it and shows off the art. He does a Q&A section, he shows off his dog. um he writes one song with the crowd on the theme, but
Wow.
sort of like in the moment. And that's how he's made his living all year, because he's a touring musician and he's not touring. But but I'm just fascinated by the people who've found ways to make it work.
Hmm.
Um, and I feel for the ones who can't do that. And I've sort of just stayed out of the whole thing. I couldn't bring myself to play it. Like, I didn't want to buy anything new. I didn't want to learn a new skill. I didn't want to or new technologies, new. I didn't really want to broadcast. I don't know. It felt like I should leave it to the people who needed to do music. I need to do music, but in a different way.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Have you been, how has your writing been in this year? Has it been easy? Has it been hard?
It's been really hard. The first half of last year was the most. I had bitten off more than I could chew. I still had my day job, and part of my day job, which was a half-time day job, but part of it last spring was trying to pass legislation in Maryland.
Mhm.
And then I was teaching uh, at Goucher, and then I had a novel due. And those all three of those things were supposed to be part-time things, but they were all full-time things. And so I essentially had three full-time jobs, and they all went virtual halfway through, and suddenly they were all done from the same chair. And I got to the end, and I was like, they were all wonderful and rewarding things, and then I was so burnt out I couldn't do anything for like 6 months. So I think in the last 6 months of 2020, I wrote like maybe one song and two or three stories, and
Mhm.
like the start of a novel. I did a whole bunch of research. Research felt doable, and I
Yeah.
love research, but I, I I'm only clawing my way back into writing right now.
Hmm. Well, you've got a book coming out in just a couple of months, right?
Yeah, yeah. I have a novel coming out in May called "We Are Satellites," which is also near future, a different near future. We can work hard on not making this one come true. Don't get anything put in your head before you read the book. No devices put in your head.
Okay.
Um, and
I'll try.
uh, yeah. And the interesting thing about this year has also been that the stuff that I am writing is not near future. Like, I cannot do it. So this book will come out, and I wrote it before the pandemic. And everything that I've written during the pandemic has been uh, horror or dark fantasy or realist um, or historical. I just cannot do the projecting into the near future thing right now at all.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I feel that. So what's the new book about?
It's about one family and how they deal with a new technology that is becoming ubiquitous. So it's this little device that everyone's getting that all it does is make make you feel like you can approach actual functional multitasking. So, the thing that we do is not multitasking. We say, "Oh, I'm a good multitasker," and what it means is you do one thing and then you switch gears and you do another, and you're pretty good at that switching gears. But this switches your gears faster. Um,
Okay.
and so it starts to feel like you can do multiple things at once and get away with it.
So
And
cocaine, basically.
yeah, so basically cocaine. Um, I was very insistent that it not be a drug. It had to be an implant. I did the homework. I found the way it would work. So it could plausibly work. You could get someone working on this, but you shouldn't, because I will also go into why it's a bad idea. And I look at it through the prism of this family that one of them wants to get it. One of them one of those people who always early adopts everything. It's two queer moms and their kids. One person really wants it. One person knows he needs to have it to keep ahead and like to keep up in school. One steadfastly does not want it, and one cannot get it. And so it's the dynamic between the four of them.
That's exciting. I cannot wait. I want to
So thank
want to read it. I've got it. I'm planning this whole summer, now that I'm going to be done with school. I'm just going to read fiction and biographies,
nice.
and that's it.
That
No,
sounds like a lot of fun.
no more theory. None of it for the whole summer. That's my goal. So I'll be. Can I pre-order your book?
You sure can. Yeah.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Well, Sarah, I know you've got a lot on your plate today. I don't want to keep you for too long. I'm so grateful that you were able to talk a little bit today. Is there anything else we should touch on that I've overlooked?
Nothing I can think of. Anything else you need to ask?
No, I think we're
All right.
good.
Well, it was lovely to talk with you, even under the guise of a project. A good excuse to talk with someone I haven't seen in a while. So
I know
thank you.
it's a good thing. It's a good
Yeah.
thing. All right, enjoy your conference. Be well. We'll
Thank
see
you.
each other soon.
All right. Bye bye.